What's up, you guys? Let's walk the line in this UFC Des Moines fight card. This is a card that I like. And, you know, I was poking around online and I saw this card getting some hate thrown its way. I don't know if it's really warranted. If you guys can hit the comment section up below, give me your guys' thoughts on this card. It could have just been some trolls doing what they do best, just hating, right? I mean, even the most stacked of cards are probably going to have a couple people online poking at them. But as I was reading some of these comments online, I was just really confused because, I mean, what's there not to like about a card like this? It's taking place in Iowa on a random Saturday. We got a main event between Cory Sandhagen and Deiveson Figueiredo, the former flyweight champ. RDR is taking on Bo Nickal. All right, both those fighters tend to get a lot of hate, but even if you're not fans of those fighters and you want to see one of them get exposed, which most likely if you're a hater, you're going to be more of a Bo Nickal hater. Trust me when I tell you RDR is a legitimate threat. And if you're an RDR hater, maybe you get to see him somewhat exposed there as well. But I mean, it's a big time fight. If you ask me, the winner of that fight will have a number next to their name when it's all said and done. For us hardcore fans, I mean, Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Daniel Rodriguez, two warriors will go at it there. Serhiy is exciting. He's taking on the youngster Cameron Smotherman. Montel Jackson takes on Daniel Marcos. And how could you guys not be excited? Okay, this is what gets me here, because I saw the hate coming towards Jeremey Stephens' way. How can you guys not be excited for the return of Jeremey Stephens, the hardest hitting featherweight fighter, however he says it? You guys know I can never get it right. The hardest hitting 145er. I mean, I've always been a huge Stephens fan. He is truly one of the most explosive knockout artists that the Octagon has ever seen. All right, we saw him grow up in the UFC. I just don't understand how you guys cannot be excited to see him make a return after all the success that he just had over in the BKFC world, right over there in the bare knuckle world. He was 3-0, finished two former UFC fighters in Jimmy Rivera, and most recently Eddie Alvarez. I mean, he's been looking good. I think his stock is up. And for people saying, why would he come back? Why wouldn't he come back, right? The last time he was in the Octagon, he got finished in about a minute against the high-level grappler Mateusz Gamrot. Why wouldn't he want to right the wrong? Or at the very least, why wouldn't he want to sail out with the UFC victory, right? He's taking on Mason Jones, who's an underrated fighter. I think that's a great matchup. I just don't understand why Jeremey Stephens was getting the hate that I saw. And again, maybe it's just I fell in to that little forum there online and it was just a coincidence. Maybe everyone is more like me and they're excited to see these matchups, because I just think this is a solid card. So I'll just start things off by saying that. All right, I won't really go too long here. We're going to jump right into the first fight. If you guys are new here, the way we do things, we start with the first fight and we work our way up all the way towards the main event. We're breaking down every single fight. We're going to dissect the betting odds and do all that. So if you guys can, smash the like button, subscribe if you're new, go catch me on all my social media. It's right there below me. Go follow me. If you want to work with me for my official targets for this card, shoot me a message through Instagram or email me. I'll give you guys further details there. And of course, I always have that special offer. If you guys sign up through my referral link, I will give you my entire slate for free. All right, guys. So reach out to me for further information there if you're looking for a new book. And I'll just leave you guys with that. Let's go jump into the first fight. I'm ready, boys.
The teller.
We'll kick this thing off in the women's flyweight division as we have Juliana Miller taking on Ivana Petrović. Many of you guys are looking at this fight as it's very low level. You're not going to get an argument from me here. Ivana Petrović came into the UFC undefeated at 6-0. There was some hype behind her. People quickly realized that her game is not all that. It's really not. I would say she's decently well-rounded and she has high fight IQ, but I don't really look at her as a solid athlete. I don't see her being the most explosive fighter. Luckily enough for her, the UFC is giving her another layup here, as recently they fed her Na Liang. Na Liang, we will give her credit for being exciting to watch, right? As she hunts for her own finishes, she's typically finished. Petrović did finish her in the third round. I would have liked to have seen Petrović finish her in the first round. Okay, so not putting too much stock into that performance. In her last fight, she went to a split decision with Jamie Lynn Horth. I think that Horth is somewhat tough. Okay, so maybe Petrović is showing some development. She's now 30 years old. In her UFC debut, she lost to Luana Carolina, who's not a bad fighter. Okay, like I said, though, you break down the tape. I don't think there's a lot going on with Petrović. I don't think she'll ever make a run in the UFC. She just needs to hold on to a roster spot. And the UFC, by the looks of it, wants to give her that opportunity. She has the look, like I said, and I think the UFC would like to keep her around. That's why they're throwing her in there with Juliana Miller, who is a very one-dimensional fighter. Okay, we know that about her. We'll see if she's showing any development. Jiu-jitsu is her base. We saw her on The Ultimate Fighter. Her striking, although it's aggressive, similarly to Na Liang, it is just sloppy. It's not technical. And I think that Petrović will be a step ahead there. As Petrović fights out of the southpaw stance, she's more technical. I expect her to get the better of those striking exchanges. And then down on the mat, I mean, Miller has some tricky jiu-jitsu, and I don't want to completely overlook that. She is dangerous to put in some work down there. But Petrović is pretty polished up down there, and I think that she should be able to hold her own. Even when we've seen Petrović taken down, we've seen her pull off reversals. I mean, she's not a fighter that's just going to get stuck down on her back. Okay, so we'll see how that all plays out. But just to simplify things here, I cannot back Juliana Miller. I need to see major development from her before I would ever back her in a fight against pretty much anyone in the UFC. Okay, I mean, that's what we're talking about here. So Petrović is more proven, okay? And I think that she's the fighter that just is the more complete mixed martial artist. She's been putting in more work with her overall MMA game from a further time back, whereas Miller has been focused more on her jiu-jitsu. She's trying to round out her game. Petrović is more proven, and I got to go with Petrović here. I just do. I think Petrović can avoid being subbed. She's never been subbed thus far throughout her career, and I think that she just will be a step ahead. Now, Petrović is currently a minus 245 favorite. Do I see value there? Right off the rip, I'm going to tell you no. I'm definitely going to tell you no. Now, the line opened up at 240. She touched as high as a minus 270. It's going back to where it started off at as we're looking at this line right now. I just don't see a lot of value on that line based on the fact that she's unproven. Women's flyweight bout like this, maybe Juliana Miller shows some development. We know she's feisty. Maybe this fight somehow plays out closely, or we see some sloppy grappling exchanges, and maybe Miller pulls something off down there. Puts Petrović in a vulnerable position. Maybe she pulls off a sub, or maybe she could rain down some ground and pound like we've seen her do against low-level fighters like Brogan Walker. I mean, I just don't see a lot of value coughing up a minus 245 line on Petrović. I'm sorry. It's just she hasn't warranted at this point in time. I have her capped more like a minus 215, 220, so it's not that far off. And I will say this. I do caution any of you guys to be targeting Juliana Miller. So I know right off the rip, not the most decisive answer from me here, but what do you guys expect? Take a look at the matchup, guys. Come on. In the bantamweight division, we have Ilia Topuria melted in the microwave versus Quang Lee. This is a good matchup here. And all jokes aside, we got Gaston Bolaños taking on Quang Lee, who Bolaños is a pretty nasty striker. All right. And we've been aware of that since his Bellator days. He's one of the better fighters throwing his spinning attacks. We've seen him throw spinning elbows, spinning back fists. He's a tricky fighter. Quang Lee, we saw him come into the UFC on short notice and put up a competitive matchup against Chris Gutierrez. And really, the success that he had in that fight was getting the fight down to the mat. I mean, he was outstruck handedly, but he did have some success early on getting that fight to the mat. I think people were just more blown away by it based on the betting odds and the fact that no one had ever heard of him. Gutierrez is a fighter that has had some respect on his name. I think that's more of what the case was. We saw him follow up that fight with a knockout loss against Xiao Long. Okay, so he's coming into this fight after just being knocked out in the third round, and that could be a problem here because Bolaños is going to throw the kitchen sink towards his big old dome here. All right, I do expect Bolaños to get the better of the striking. And I understand that Lee has had some performances where he's shown off some striking, right? If you take a look at some of the fights he's had in the regional scene, we've seen him land some brutal KOs. I don't put that much stock into some of those performances, okay? If you take a look at the fighters that he's knocked out, I don't think they're on the level of a Bolaños. And I'll pull up like his last fight he had over in LFA where he had the first round knockout against Tiao Thong. You could pull that fight up on YouTube. I don't think that he's near the level of a striker compared to Bolaños. I think that Bolaños will get the better of the striking exchanges. You take a look at the numbers, it's Bolaños that has the reach advantage. He is slightly taller, very slightly, but at the very least, he's not the smaller fighter. And I like that for Bolaños here. Also, you take a look at Bolaños' last fight against Romius. I know he was taken down a little bit here and there, but he also had success in his own right with his grappling. He's showing development there. I don't look at him so harshly for the knockout loss against Marcus McGee. Marcus McGee is a stud of a fighter. And you guys know, for those of you guys that tune in regularly, we've been back at Marcus McGee. I think he's a stud. So he was outmatched in that fight, but McGee is a high-level, well-rounded fighter. I don't see that from Quang Le. I like Bolaños to get the better of this matchup by keeping this fight standing, right? He has to have success stuffing the takedowns of Lee. Lee will look to test him there. As he stuffs the takedowns, he will get the better of the striking exchanges, and the knockout's going to be very live here. In fact, I'm going to take Gaston Bolaños to land a KO. I'm going to say he gets a knockout in the first 2 rounds, okay? He opened up as a minus 175, a little up and down action, but really not any extreme movement. He's now a minus 180. I would say that the value is still on Bolaños' side. I like him. I like him to win this fight, and I say he gets a knockout. We got some heavyweight action set to take place between Don'Tale Mayes and Thomas Petersen, a.k.a. Thomas Jefferson. You guys know Petersen has some real Jeremy Smith vibes going on. You guys know the routine. I'm making the phone call to good old JR, letting him know the car's tailgate me for a couple blocks. Smith's running out the house, no socks, sliding on the lugs, got the black and mild hanging out of his mouth, ready to scrap 2 dudes at the same time. Funny enough, Mayes looks like one of the dudes in the car that was chasing me down on that day. But Petersen's a tough dude, a little sluggish. Petersen, a 2-time state champ. He also wrestled over at North Dakota State. It really all starts there, in my opinion. He has to have success with his wrestling. I don't think that he wants to have a straight-up kickboxing match against Mayes. I think he could be in trouble there. Luckily enough for him, though, I think he should be able to have some success here. Mayes has been up and down in those types of fights. You take a look back at that matchup he had against Hamdi Abdul-Wahab. He was taken down 3 times on 4 attempts, and he was controlled for almost 7 minutes. You could really say it was the grappling that cost him that fight, or you could say it was the steroids that Hamdi was on. But seriously though, we've seen him struggle a little bit against higher level grapplers, right? And his last fight was subbed by Walter Walker via heel hook, and just over a minute. We saw him get caught in a heel hook as well against Cyril Gahn way back when he made his UFC debut. So, and then here's the thing too, you take a look at all these fights in between, you're not seeing a lot of higher level grapplers that he's facing off against. I mean, I guess you could throw Rodrigo Nascimento in the mix, and he did survive that fight, but I don't see a lot of higher level grapplers throughout. And I think that when he gets tested there, he could be in trouble. He's one of those clunky fighters that kind of trips on his shoelaces. He's big, so once you take him down, it's hard for him to get back up, and I kind of see that being the case in this matchup. But I'll just say it one more time. If Petersen does struggle to consistently get the fight down there, or if he gets him down and can't kind of hold him down, he could be in for some trouble there, because I'm not really crazy about the striking that Petersen possesses, although he's kind of evolving. It's not a fighter that's complete at all. I mean, he's 30 years old, but this is a heavyweight fighter that just has 12 professional fights. He's looking to get his feet wet, but I would like to see him trim up. I don't know how seriously he's taken the fight game. I don't know. Maybe that's just, it's tough for me to throw that out there because I don't know. I'm kind of just speculating from the outside, but and you could say the same thing for Mayes, but I would like to see these guys trim up their diet a little bit more and have a little bit more of an urgency with how they take care of their bodies in a sense. And sometimes they look like they're just kind of cruising and going through the motions in certain fights. But my gut here is telling me that Petersen will have enough success with his wrestling to take this fight. I'm going to say he wins this fight via decision, but it's not out of the realm that he can get on top of Mayes and potentially put himself in position to try to get a finish. But I'm not really banking on that. Petersen opened up as a minus 260. He's currently a minus 235, so we see action coming in the other way, as to be expected from my standpoint. I think that line is a little bit wide. Petersen also, I kind of completely glossed over the fact that he's coming off a tough performance in his last fight where he was finished up by Shamil Gaziev in the first round very, very quickly. And let's just take a quick look at that. Don'Tale Mayes went to a decision against Shamil Gaziev, and Gaziev just ran through Petersen in the first round. He only was able to last about 3 minutes with him. Don'Tale Mayes was able to go to a decision in that fight before the Walker fight. So, that's something that you could kind of hold in regard for Mays, putting some stock into him in this spot. But I'm going to go with my gut here. I think the wrestling is the difference. Do not see a lot of value on this line, though. I have Petersen capped more as like a minus 185 favorite, something like that. So value on the dog here, as far as I'm concerned. Ranked women's strawweight action taking place here. And this is a real stylistic clash. We got the number 9th ranked striker, Marina Rodriguez, taking on the high-level grappler, number 12th ranked Gillian Robertson. And this is one of those fights I was kind of thinking of in the back of my mind when I was talking about us hardcore fans kind of liking this fight card. I like this fight. Okay, some people don't like the women's action as much as I do. I like these types of fights. I love to see stylistic matchups. We're going to see who's going to be able to implement their game plan. Marina Rodriguez has definitely struggled with her takedown defense and her grappling throughout her UFC career. But I will say this, for a 37-year-old fighter, over the last couple of years, even though it still was the grappling that cost her in some of those fights, I would say that we've seen some growth from her there. And that will be very important here, okay? And that's kind of, it's not as shocking as you would think. Even though she's getting up there in age, she came into MMA with a high-level striking background. She's been just continuously grinding, trying to learn how to keep the fight on her feet where she thrives. But you take a look at all her big losses, it definitely was the grappling that cost her. And even as of recently, right? You take a look at the Lucindo fight. She was controlled for almost an entire round. She was taken down on 3 of 4 attempts there. The Jessica Andrade fight, she was taken down just one time, but Andrade was 1 of 1 on her takedowns. She controlled her for almost an entire round there too, with 4 minutes. And it definitely was imperative that Andrade got that takedown there, as that fight was close. It came down to a round. The strikes were very close, almost even there. You take a look at the John DeRoba fight. You guys know what's going on there. I mean, John DeRoba is high level. John DeRoba controlled her for 12 minutes. She was 3 of 7 on her takedowns. But we know John DeRoba is nasty there. The Amanda Lemos fight was one of the rare fights where she was actually knocked out. I mean, just where she lost the fight due to a striking type of matchup. That was one of those rare ones. Was on a 4-fight winning streak before that. She was looking very good. How about the Carla Esparza fight? That was a very tough one. Make no mistake, she lost that fight due to not being able to keep the fight on the feet. All right, so and we'll highlight some of her bigger fights. I mean, had a victory over Natalia Silva, a very young Silva on the regional scene, and we could just quickly highlight the knockout that she had over Amanda Ribas. That fight kind of put her on the map a little bit back then. But like I said, she's 37, but she's grinding. If she can keep this fight standing, I do believe she will have a striking advantage over Robertson. Even though Robertson is rounding out her overall game, let's not just completely overlook some of the work that she's putting in. She surrounds herself with some really good people. It's crazy to think she's still not 30. Okay, she's under the 30 marker, although she'll be 30 here in a couple of days, I believe. I mean, I really like the development that we've seen from Robertson throughout the years. And if you take a look at some of her bigger performances, right, like what she did to Polyana Viana, I know it's not a big name, but when you see her just dominating the way that she did in that fight, you see what she's about down on the mat. She submitted P-Rod down there, dominated Maria Agapova, and the UFC is just slowly starting to work her into some of the bigger fights. And I like that. I like the way that they've handled her. Her lone loss as of recently was against Tabitha Ricci, who I do have respect for Ricci, but I mean, I'll cut to the chase here. I have a lot more faith in Robertson being able to implement her game plan, which is getting this fight down to the mat. I don't know if she's going to be able to sub Marina down on the mat, because even though Marina struggles with being taken down, if you actually take a look at her lengthy, at this point in time, her lengthy mixed martial arts career, she's never been submitted, but I still think that Robertson could control her for extended periods of time. Maybe she puts her into like a ground and pound type of situation, but I'm going to say Robertson wins this fight via unanimous decision by just having success with the grappling. Okay, just to make it simple there. Okay, you take a look at some of the numbers. Robertson with a 40% takedown accuracy. Listen, it only takes one for Robertson to control her for over half of a round and solidify rounds. I mean, it only takes 1 or 2. If you're chain wrestling and you're putting them out there, you see 62% takedown defensive ratio on Rodriguez. Sometimes these types of numbers with the grappling can be misleading, if I'll say, because you could stuff a bunch, but if you're taken down once and you're held down for an extended period of time and it costs you rounds, it's a problem. And if it costs you fights over and over and over, it's a problem. All right. I like Gillian Robertson here. She opened up as a -270. She's currently a -290. We're seeing action come in on her, even as she's a pretty hefty favorite over a respectable fighter. It has all to do with the fact that people see her getting takedowns and dominating down there, and I actually see that as well. I think that the line is pretty accurate. Even a high line like this, I have her capped right around a -300. I see her having that type of success. But I will say she wins a decision there. She wins a decision. I'm going to say she does not find the finish. I really like the matchmaking the UFC did here. At 185, we have Azamat Bekoev taking on the Ultimate Fighter winner, Brian Loder. Both of these fighters have a lot of success in the cage using their wrestling and their grappling, right? Loder, a former Division I wrestler. When you break down any tape on him, including that last fight he just had against Robert Valentin, you're going to see him push the pace and look to dominate the opposition down on the mat. I mean, he pushes the pace really hard, and he's very physically strong. Dating back to all the fights you'll see in the regional scene, he's going out there smashing dudes like Leon Shabazi and Edmund's older brother. I believe it's actually his older brother. Went out there, closed the distance, just mauled him in just over a minute, got the finish there. But it's interesting here because Bekoev, we know he's a high-level grappler as well. We saw it against Zach Reese in his UFC debut, closed the distance, got on top of Reese, used that ground and pound to finish the fight. All right, so he has that accuracy down on the mat with the ground and pound as well. What Bekoev has going for himself in this matchup, I believe that Bekoev is a little bit more proven with his overall game. All right, you can pull up some tape on him back from his ACA days and just some other early tape before now joining the UFC. You can see him mixing it up a little bit, working the clinch game, using some striking from the outside, even knocking dudes out at range. Although he still does like to close the distance, if these fighters kind of nullify themselves, both just being very stout, not being taken down, and we see some space created, I can see Bekoev being a little bit more polished, or we could just say he's a little bit more proven there. Also, I may give him the edge as far as his jiu-jitsu goes, but I'm not completely sold on that. I've seen Loder make some mistakes down on the mat, just getting a little overzealous with his wrestling. We saw it in the Valentin fight, right? In the first round, got reversed there for a second. But you also have to love the way that he just instantly uses his strength and just grappling abilities just to jump back up to his feet and pull off a reversal. But I don't know if he makes a mistake like that, if he'll just be able to quickly correct that against a fighter like Bekoev. Bekoev may be able to sink in some hooks or control him down on the mat. But I'm pumped for this fight. But again, the difference for me is, as I think that Bekoev may prove to be a little bit more well-rounded. But I don't know. I'm pumped for this fight, and I would not be surprised if Loder goes out there and if things just get ugly and we see a real high pace pushed in this fight. If we see Loder just do what he does best and just kind of break down Bekoev and maybe thrive in the later rounds. All right, so I will give a cardio edge to Loder. All right, so pumped for this fight. I will lean towards Bekoev's way. We take a look at the odds here, and I'm actually going to highlight the line movement here on Ryan Loder as he opened up as a 3-1 underdog, right around a +305. We're seeing action come in on him. He's now right around a +250. I wouldn't be surprised if that line continues to dip and we see him settle around like a +200, +220 or something like that. This fight should be a lot closer than him being a 3-1 dog. Okay, he is very physical, and he's going to look to close the distance, and things could get very ugly in there. I just will also highlight that Bekoev has the experience edge. All right, he has almost 3 times the amount of MMA fights. And when you take a look at the level of competition, some of those fighters that he was battling against over in ACA and over on the other side of the world over there, some of those guys look to be pretty respectable. Whereas if you dive into Loder's resume, I mean, nothing really stands out to me that much. So that's another edge that goes the way of Bekoev. Give me him to win the fight via decision. We got 2 OGs of women's mixed martial arts squaring off here in Yana Santos and Miesha Tate. When you're talking Miesha Tate, you're not just talking an OG, you're talking a legend of the game. I've been following Tate from way back to the Strikeforce days, before the UFC even consumed that organization and took on women's mixed martial arts into the Octagon. If you guys remember, once upon a time, Dana was saying that he wanted nothing to do with that. I mean, Tate is one of the staples of the beginnings of women fighting in the Octagon. And when you're talking about some of the most exciting fights that we've ever seen in WMMA, you're talking about Miesha Tate versus Kat Zingano. I mean, there's a bunch of fights. I mean, she's always brought it. She's so fun to watch. We remember, of course, she retired from the sport a couple of years back, kind of a premature retirement, I guess, if you will. I mean, depending on how you look at it, she since got that fire to return. She hasn't been extremely active, but since returning back in 2021, you take a look at what she's been doing. She's 2-2 in the UFC. Take a look at the 2 victories. It was both. They were both against very aged fighters in Julia Avila and Marianne Renault. She took L's to Ketlin Vieira and Lauren Murphy. All in all, if I'm being quite honest, and I'm a big Miesha Tate fan, I haven't been that impressed with what I've seen from her, just taking all things into account. And I'll tell you what, Yana Santos also stepped away from fighting for a little bit, right? She had a long layoff before making that return fight against Holly Holm, right? She was coming in almost on a 2.5-year layoff. I believe she had a child. I know she married Thiago Santos. She was doing some things outside of just fighting. She returned coming off a knockout loss from Irene Aldana, and she faced off against Holly Holm. And in that fight, it was the grappling, right? And her takedown defense that kind of cost her. And people are looking at this matchup thinking that Miesha Tate's going to be able to have a lot of success there. I will just say this. She was coming off that long layoff. And after that fight, you see her face off against Carol Rosa, a fighter that's much more in her prime, that's a pretty well-rounded fighter. That was a fight that she arguably won. It was very close. You take a look at the numbers. She outstruck her on significant strikes, 95-66. It was actually Santos that had 3 minutes and 53 seconds of control time compared to Rosa's 41 seconds. It was a very close fight. Not saying it was a robbery. If you take a look at the major media scoring, a couple people did have Santos winning that fight. But I think that you started to see that she's getting her bearings under her. She's starting to get things going. In her last fight, she went out there and defeated Chelsea Chandler. I think that she has a fire under her. I think that she's I think she has a little bit more to offer the fight game. Let's also mention that she's 35 years old compared to Miesha Tate's 38. And I like Santos here. I do. I don't have enough faith that Miesha Tate's going to have all this success with her wrestling. And I think that Santos will be the fighter that's looking to land damage more. We know Miesha doesn't wear damage that well. In those types of grueling fights, she's all bloodied up. I don't think it will look good for the judges' scorecards. And I just think that Santos is going to build off that last fight and just build off her last 2 fights that are just against a little bit more respectable opposition. All right. Again, Julia Avila, and just, the female Beneil Dariush with the gray hairs and all that, more of a jiu-jitsu based fighter. Just she doesn't really bring the same threat as a Yana Santos, she's a tough chick, man. Yana is a tough chick. And I'm going to side with Yana here. I am. I'm going to say that she's the fighter that's landing more. You take a look at the numbers. She lands 4.42 strikes per minute compared to Miesha's 2.62. Miesha also absorbs 2.98. And if you watch tape on her, if you watch all her fights like we've all been watching for years, she's not the highest technical defensive fighter. She gets touched up. I think Santos can capitalize on that. You look at the ratio, it's better for Santos, only absorbing 3.12. She just has to keep the fight standing. She has to be on point with her takedown defense. I think she will be prepared. Give me Santos to win this fight via decision. Right now, she is the dog. She's a plus 105. Some up and down action here, as she did touch as high as a plus 120. She's starting to come back down. I don't know. I'm interested to see where this line goes from here. I think that it will even out, though. I think that this fight will settle with a very close line next to it. It'll be like a pick'em type of fight. People, they got a lot of love for Miesha Tate. Maybe you see her name kind of bring some action in on her. Or maybe, we see people kind of doing their research and seeing that Santos has a little bit more left to give. So give me Santos here to win this fight via decision. Hey guys, real quick, I just want to say I highly appreciate you guys for tuning in. Please smash that like button. Don't forget, if you want to work with me for my official plays, you guys can reach out. I'll give you further information there. And I always have that special offer. If you guys sign up through my link for a new book, I will give you guys my entire slate for this card for free. I appreciate you guys greatly. Thanks for tuning in. We have the return of Lil Heathen, Jeremey Stephens. He'll be taking on Mason Jones. This is also a return fight for Mason Jones, as he was cut by the UFC after essentially going 2-2, depending on how you look at that Alan Patrick fight. He was dominating the fight. He got hit with the eye poke, so it was no contest technically, but he really was 2-2 if you give him that fight there. And since departing from the UFC, he is now on a 4-fight winning streak outside the UFC. Had a lot of success over in Cage Warriors. I will let you guys know that I'm not that high on the level of competition when you take a look at that 4-fight winning streak. Just to put things into perspective here, I actually put a little bit more merit into what Jeremey Stephens has been doing as of recently. I know some of you guys may think that's crazy, but if this fight stays standing, which there's a good possibility that it could, Jeremey has really been sharpening up his striking, and he already was one of the more dangerous fighters that we've ever seen in the Octagon when you're talking about his knockout ability, okay? And, in the BKFC world, of course, you're sharpening up your hands. And I think that if this fight is just a straight up kickboxing type of match, a straight up boxing type of match, I think that he's very live to put some damage on Mason Jones here. But of course, this is a mixed martial arts fight. And we have seen Stephens struggle a little bit with that aspect of his game. In fact, if you take a look back to the last time he was in the Octagon, okay, he got ran through by Mateusz Gamrot, right? He was submitted in just over a minute. He got caught with that Kimura. He had a couple tough performances, man. He got finished up by Calvin Kattar, lost to Yair Rodriguez. But I will say this, look at the level of competition of fighters that he was battling against when he was taking these L's. Okay, Jose Aldo, Zabit, Magomed Sharipov. If my pronunciation wasn't the best on that, listen, I used to be very familiar with Zabit back in the day, but for whatever reason, he chose to walk away from the fight game, and that was very unfortunate. But, Zabit, a nasty fighter. A lot of people believed if he would have hung around, he could have became a champion. Okay, so just to understand the level of competition we're talking about, he had that knockout over Josh Emmett. Let me just run you through a quick list, guys. I was there live for that one in Orlando. A brutal knockout victory over Josh Emmett. And at that point in time, no one had ever hurt Emmett like that. Okay, you talk about the knockout that he had over Dennis Bermudez. Okay, the knockout that he had over Ronnie Jason. Okay, if you're not familiar with Jason, he was on The Ultimate Fighter in Brazil, but it was just the way he knocked out Ronnie Jason. It was disgusting. Okay, the knockout victories that he would put out there, just ridiculous. The Marcus Davis KO was ridiculous. Go pull these up if you guys don't want to take my word for them. You're talking about some of the nastiest knockouts you will ever see. And I have to mention the RDA knockout where I believe he broke his jaw. All right. Nicole Miller, former American Top Team product, knocked him out. There's just so many to talk about. And I've always been a huge Jeremey Stephens fan. Some of you guys, I saw the comment section. Some of you guys don't like for me to throw out these little tidbits where I kind of mention some of my interactions with the fighters. I mean, I just throw them out there just to kind of, I don't know. I mean, why not? I'm not trying to brag to you guys. I've actually chopped it up with Stephens a little bit on IG. We DM'd a little bit back and forth. I sent him a collab on a post leading up to that Eddie Alvarez fight, and he collabed with me on it, just some quick words, and that was awesome. It's cool to talk to these dudes, and he follows me now. He's always showing love on the post, and it's kind of cool when you have those types of things happen. So it's not that I'm sitting here trying to brag about it, but as fight fans, I kind of feel that some of you guys would like some of that insight from my side here, as I'm just a fan as well, guys. And I will be rooting for Jeremey Stephens here. I think that he's a lot more live to win this fight than the odds are going to say. And compared to what I'm hearing online, a lot of people are just referring to him as this old man who's going to get ran through. I mean, Mason Jones, he's not the most proven fighter. Okay, 15-2. If you want to give him credit, yeah, he stood in there, went toe-to-toe with a fighter like Mike Davis. You can give him credit there, or you can give him a little bit of credit for going to a decision against Ludovic Klein, who's an absolute beast. I get that. You can give him some credit for battling. I mean, you also have to highlight the David Onama victory, right? David Onama, that's a respectable win. Okay, so I understand all that, but if this fight plays out on the feet, if you guys just want to completely overlook the fact that Stephens is dangerous there and the fact that Mason Jones does entertain those types of fights, okay, he's tough, he's entertaining. I think the UFC matched these guys up for a reason. Okay, they gave Stephens this fight as a return fight for a reason. I think that this is going to be a fun one. If you overlook Stephens, maybe trap alert, hit that trap alert, hit the button, boys. Beep. All right, guys, I think that Stephens could potentially be live here. I know he's very motivated for this fight, and I may be a little bit biased, but I'm picking Stephens to win this fight. And at the very least, listen, the odds are off. All right. I'm picking Stephens to win this fight. Okay. Well, we'll see how he looks. He's up there in age. Maybe we just see that continued growth from Jones. Maybe Jones changes levels. We see a lot of clinch work, and maybe he just pushes the pace on Stephens. That's definitely possible. But I'm backing my boy here at Stephens. So at least as far as the line goes, the value's on the dog. All right. Be careful. I'm not telling you guys to put your mortgage up on Stephens, but don't be surprised if you see all that success that he just recently had over in the BKFC scene get brought into this fight, especially if this fight takes place for a good amount of time on the feet. We see them striking it out. You're going to see a crafty veteran in Stephens that has serious power. I expect this to be one of the more exciting bouts on the card. At 135, we have Cameron Smotherman taking on Sidey. And I hope I'm not getting you boys too hungry watching this right now as you see Smotherman going in on the enchiladas. But both these fighters had initial stints on Dana White's Contender Series. They both went very differently. Sidey had the knockout victory over Ramon Tavares. If you guys remember, Dana White thought that the ending was so premature that he rematched them in an official UFC bout, where then Sidey would take an L via split decision, where the vast majority of us thought that he won that fight. If you run it back and take a look at it. Smotherman, on the other hand, got knocked out against my boy, the Greek Charalampos Gregorio. And Smotherman was the favorite in that bout. Got finished up in the first round. That fight took place about 1 year and 8 months ago. You can potentially argue that the stoppage was premature there. It was close, but Smotherman was taking some damage. I felt that in that fight, he once again showed that he has some defensive flaws. Even if you run back the fight that he had before Gregorio over on the regional scene, which was for the Fury Championship, where he defeated Peter Caballero. Okay, he knocked him out in the second round. He won the fight. But if you run the tape back on that bout there, which it's up on YouTube, you'll see him get touched up a bit. And I just mentioned that because I think that Sidey is a scrappy fighter. He's going to have a length advantage here. So Smotherman needs to show that continued growth defensively, or else I think that Sidey could potentially knock him out here. If you take a look at the numbers, I mean, like I said, Sidey is scrappy. He pushes the pace. 7 of his 11 victories do come by way of KO. Talked about that Tavares fight where he hurt him early on. Smotherman finished early on against Gregorio. Smotherman needs to show that continued growth defensively because he has looked good as of recently. We know he surrounds himself with good people. Fighting out of Houston, I know he trains with fighters like Rufián Stotts, Adrian Yanez, and all that. So, and also you note he's 27 years old. There's a lot of room for growth. We could highlight the performance that he just had against Jake Hadley, which I believe he took that fight on short notice, went out there and really worked Hadley. Hadley, a fighter that we once respected, just continuously showed he could just not get his hand raised in the octagon. It just was a hard task for him, and Smotherman looked good. He was working the body in that fight. He was getting the better of the striking, and I just don't know if he's going to be able to do that against Sidey here. I think that Sidey is going to be the better striker. He's going to have about a 2-inch reach advantage. He's a little taller. I think that there's some things going for Sidey here. I don't know if Smotherman's going to be able to have success changing levels or trying to use grappling. He only has 1 submission out of his 12 victories. We've never seen Sidey submitted. I do expect this fight to take place on the feet, and I just think that Sidey is going to prove to be a slight step ahead. I really like what I've seen from him. He's one of the more rare Canadian fighters that are up and coming right now in the UFC. I've talked about that in the past. I haven't talked about it as much recently, but you just don't see a lot of hot prospects representing Canada. I mean, I challenge any of you guys to really even list big Canadian fighters that are in their 20s right now. I don't know how old Mikey Malott is. Jasmine Justinivičius. I mean, these are the types of fighters you're talking about. So Sidey has potential to hold the flag for Canada, but it's not going to be a walk in the park here against Smotherman. And I just want to highlight once again the fact that he is very young, and we probably should expect to see some solid growth in his fight game. Taking that fight on short notice last time. This time he's more prepared here. But you also have to note Sidey is just 28 years old. So why not expect to see that continued growth from him as well? And I thought that he looked good in that last fight against Garrett Armfield, who's an underrated fighter. I already mentioned I thought that he defeated Tavares in the rematch there, and that was a grueling fight. I think that he showed that he has a lot of heart. There's a lot of things going for him there. So yes, I will side with Sidey to win this fight. He opened up as a -150. He is currently a -165. We see slight action coming his way. I don't know if I want to say it surprises me or not, because I kind of expected we would see some action coming in on Smotherman. I see a lot of people raving about his potential online, and I understand it is warranted to an extent, but Sidey's the real deal as well. And I think that's why you're seeing that line movement here. I'm going to say Sidey wins this fight via knockout. I'm going to say that he lands something big here. Once again, the defensive flaws of Smotherman kind of cost him, and I think that Sidey can implement something similarly to what Gregorio did in that first round on DWCS. Give me a first or second round KO for the Canadian. Montel Jackson makes one of his rare pit stops into the Octagon. He now has a number next to his name. He's ranked 15th. He's taking on Daniel Marcos, who's still undefeated, although we'll talk about that in a second. But Montel Jackson gets that ranking, even though he's been so inactive. The knockout victory that he had over Blackshear just put the rankers in a position where they just can't overlook the ability that he brings when he steps in. All right, we talk about the Francis Ngannou hands. All right, the knockout power, that raw ability that he brings. For whatever reason, he just can't stay active. But when he's in there, he's damn good. Okay, we had an official play on him against Blackshear. That was a great night, and he showed once again that he can come in off a year layoff and go out there and just run through the opposition like he did against Ronnie Yaya. The Blackshear knockout, both those fights, he was coming in off a year absence, okay? And it's just been a consistent thing that's gone on with him. If you want to take a look at his two losses, the Brett Johns loss, which was a close one, Johns just held him against the cage. I would say that if the judging criteria is the way that it is now, if it was like that back then, Jackson probably still wins that fight. Johns did no type of damage, just held him there. And then you also talk about the Ricky Simone fight. That was a fight where the grappling cost him a little bit, but he even showed these raw traits, right? Like he was flattened out, and then he's using his hands to baseball back grip Simone from bottom and just rip him over his head. I mean, we were seeing these raw traits from him, and not a lot of big victories to his name, realistically, when you still look at it, right? An aged Yaya. You could mention the Julio Arce fight. Probably the Blackshear victory is going to be the one worth noting, especially since it was his last fight. Okay, but when you watch tape on him, you understand that he's the real deal. I really believe that. Now, a big asterisk with him for sure could be the question of what is he doing in between these bouts, or how dedicated is he to the sport? But like I said earlier, if you look at how he looks in the cage, returning from these breaks, it looks like he's still getting in that work. If you follow him on IG, you're not really going to see him hitting the pads or training, okay? He's kind of a secretive type of guy, but when he steps into the Octagon, it looks like he's continuing to sharpen up his game. Now, Daniel Marcos is another fighter that is sharpening up his game, I would say, right? Because since the Davey Grant loss, okay, I'll label that fight as a loss. And if you take a look at all of the major media scoring, take a look at verdict, all of that, I mean, I think everyone pretty much had him losing that fight, although it was somewhat competitive. Since then, he's looked pretty damn good. The John Castaneda fight was a good one. Went out there and pretty much dominated the striking, intimidated Castaneda right off the rip. Just had the victory over Adrian Yanez, the slick and dangerous boxer. Okay, so we know that Marcos is a talented kickboxer. He's a well-rounded fighter. He's still never technically tasted defeat. Okay, but this is a step up of competition as far as I'm concerned. Take a look at the reach advantage that Jackson has here. He'll have an 8-inch reach advantage over Marcos. Remember what I talked about earlier? Some of the times that we've seen Jackson struggle is when he faced off against grappling type of fighters. That's not who Marcos is. Marcos is going to give him that opportunity to basically have a kickboxing type of match. That's the type of fight that Marcos likes to have. That's where Jackson thrives. I think that Jackson can hurt him big. But at the very end of the day, even in a type of fight where they're trading back and forth, I think that Jackson can do a lot more than what we even saw Davey Grant do. Okay, I think the power strikes are going to be landed by Jackson, and I think that Jackson takes this fight via decision. I'm going to say he wins a decision, but of course you have to believe the knockout is somewhat live just based off the fact Jackson's 8 of his 14 victories have come by way of KO. The way he just finished Blackshear, I mean, that was crazy. Okay, that huge hand, if it touches the side of Marcos's temple, he might put him out, but I would say that Marcos has shown to be pretty durable as of now, and I will lean towards a decision. Take a look at the line movement here. Jackson opened up as a -170, and you see an action come in on him. If I remember correctly, in that last fight, with the absence, once again, all the breaks he was taking, and people do respect Blackshear, the line movement wasn't like this, if you guys remember. If I remember correctly, I locked in Jackson with a huge wager, and then leading up to the fight, the line continued to dip, and I grabbed him right before the fight at ridiculous odds. I mean, that was a real cash there. So, and yes, I do take my losses, guys. I know some of you hate to hear me talk about my winnings. I'll make sure I highlight a loss here in a second. We'll look for one. But give me Montel Jackson to win this fight via decision. At 170, we have two very respectable UFC veterans squaring off. This fight makes all the sense in the world. You take a look at the metrics. They're very similar. Both 38 years old now in Santiago Ponzinibbio and D-Rod Daniel Rodriguez. The reach, the heights, all very similar. Now, this should be a fight that takes place on the feet, so it should be a treat for us in that sense. I would say that D-Rod is hoping for the fight to play out like that a little bit more so than Ponzinibbio, even though we know Ponzinibbio can more than hold his own on the feet, okay? But we've seen D-Rod struggle a little bit with his grappling at times, and one of D-Rod's main training partners is a friend of mine, in Sasha Palatnikov. I bring him up here and there. That's a former UFC fighter, one of the fighters that I interviewed on MMA Live Discussion back in the day that I've kind of kept a relationship with online. He's a solid dude and a hell of a fighter in his own right, but he's directly part of this camp for D-Rod, okay? I mean, he's one of probably his main training partner, okay, to put things into perspective, and I know they're getting in some serious work, all right? So D-Rod is ready to go. D-Rod's coming off an impressive victory over Alex Morono. Thought he looked very good in that fight. It was a much-needed victory, okay? He was on the 3-fight losing skid before that. But let's also just note the Kelvin Gastelum fight, okay? He had some moments in that fight. He was getting, I don't know if you want to say, he was getting the better of the striking. Gastelum proved to be the more well-rounded fighter, but there was some success by D-Rod with his striking. And I want to highlight that because Ponzinibbio, the older he's gotten, although he's prevailed even in some of those fights, he's gone through turbulence with his defense, okay? He has these little moments of time where he kind of freezes up and doesn't have the same defense that he once had. I truly believe that. And I think that D-Rod's going to be a threat to him early on in this fight. Even when you look at the victory over Carlston Harris, he went through a little bit of turbulence. He got knocked out by Kevin Holland. The Michelle Pereira fight, they went to war. He took a lot of damage in that fight. The Alex Morono fight, he was losing that fight before coming back in the third and getting the knockout, okay? He was being outlanded in that fight, okay? So there are some defensive flaws there, and I think that a sharp D-Rod who has solid boxing skills, he can land on Ponzinibbio, all right? And I actually will give him the edge in that type of fight. But again, if there's a little bit of a threat to D-Rod here, of course it is the striking as well, but hopefully D-Rod is up to par with his takedown defense and his grappling. If Ponzinibbio looks to test him a little bit there, we'll see how that plays out. But all in all, I like this matchup for D-Rod. I think that this is a great matchup for him to build a little winning streak and to go out there and defeat a very recognizable and respectable name in the game who's up there in age, but the victory will still carry some merit, and D-Rod can then go on to look to build on that. So give me D-Rod to get the knockout, okay? I'm going to say he gets first or I'm going more first or second. I know I'm kind of cheating. I'm not giving you an exact round, but an earlier knockout for D-Rod, okay? And I want to be clear, guys, all right, even before talking to Sasha or getting insight, this and that, whatever you want to say, insight, whatever, you know what I'm saying, but just reaching out to the camp. This is already what I was seeing, man. This isn't a biased pick. It's nothing like that, man. This is me doing my own homework, okay, right off the rip. I mean, if you take a look at who I've picked to win in D-Rod's fights as of recently, it's not even like I pick him consistently, even though one of my boys is out there being part of the camp and all that, okay? So I picked against D-Rod. I had an official play on Kelvin Gastelum, okay, in that bout that we cashed in on. I really like this fight for D-Rod. I really see him landing. And you guys know, for those of you that follow me on IG, I mean, I met Ponzinibbio. I'll post that picture periodically when he wins a fight, right? I did that in his last win. Okay, I met him at a Titan FC event, and he was a solid dude. Okay, I didn't just go up and take a picture either. I kind of chopped it up with him for a second. That was a very fun event. Ponzinibbio is the real deal. He's a great guy. Okay, so I like Ponz too. Okay, and he's cashed for me a lot. Okay, but I like this matchup for D-Rod. You guys know I'm pumped up for this matchup here. For those of you guys that don't know, I am a huge Bo Nickal fan, and I'm also a big RDR fan. I've been very excited to see him work his game inside the Octagon here over the past year or so. But Bo Nickal, listen, I see him get a lot of hate. People feel that he's cocky or whatnot. And I'll be clear with you guys. The reason why I'm a huge fan of his is, okay, I'm a proud American, and I love to see American fighters thriving inside the Octagon. And I believe that Bo Nickal has the ability to bring in a lot of top tier talent top tier wrestling talent towards MMA's way. Okay. I think that he's kind of a leader in that sense. And, you know, you hear people kind of poke fun at people rooting for American fighters, right? It's like, oh, you're not supposed to root for American fighter. That makes absolutely zero sense to me. Every other country roots on their fighters. Why don't you see fellow Americans rooting on Americans to do well inside the octagon? When you take a look at the current champions, it's not like we're dominating the fight game. Let's be honest there. So now another reason why I'm a huge fan is, and this goes for all sports, I'm a huge sports fan. I love watching prodigies work their way up the ladder, and I love to see greatness. And I think that Bo Nickal has that type of potential. Okay, but we'll talk about some of his more recent performances, which I haven't been crazy about, but we know the deal, right? Brings in that high caliber wrestling ability, which is a staple of being a dominant champ. Okay, for the most part, right? You guys know what I'm talking about. He's a 3-time national champ, almost a 4-time, I believe, right? Came down to the finals. This is a wrestler that could have went on to win a gold medal. He did lose to an American, right? In the bracket to represent the country. The guy that he lost to went on to win the gold medal. I mean, so that's the type of wrestler we're talking about. But what's been so amazing to watch early on in his MMA career is the fact that he's quickly jumped into the MMA world and has looked phenomenal with other aspects of his fight game, right? Going out there right off the rip, the knockout he had over John Nolan. And I understand this is a low-level fighter, but the way he moves with his boxing skills, you take a look at the Dana White's Contender Series fights, okay? The victory that he had over Zachary Borrego, the rear naked choke, just went out there, dominated. But the one that was more impressive to me was the Donovan Beard victory, where Beard had some MMA experience. He had 8 professional fights. The way that Nickal just rolled to his back and slapped on that triangle, you're seeing that he's intertwining the overall game together. He's picking up everything, and that to me is impressive. Now, I will say this. I haven't been particularly that impressed with some of the performances he's had since being an official UFC fighter. All right, Jamie Pickett went out there, pulled off the first round submission. I was kind of confused why he wasn't able to solidify that arm triangle choke even quicker than he did when he had him in that position. I've been out of the jiu-jitsu game for a while. I used to train jiu-jitsu extensively back in 2012, 13, 14. I used to do some little jiu-jitsu tournaments, no-gi type stuff. But the way I would learn that sub, I guess, is different than what they're teaching people these days, I guess. I know we went back and forth in the comment section with a few of you guys there, but I didn't like how it took him so long to pull that sub off. The Val Woodburn fight, that was fun. It looked a little sloppy there, but he got the knockout. The Brundage fight took him a little bit. And then that Paul Craig fight, he was very timid, wanted nothing to do with the grappling. And, that really wasn't the most impressive performance. I would have liked to have seen him gone out there and knock Craig out, which I do believe he had the ability to do, but he just fought a smart fight. But, I want to see Bo Nickal continue to bring in that confidence where he's going out there to dominate and finish. You like to see the high fight IQ, but also as he fights these high level fighters, if he's second guessing himself a little bit, it could end up costing him. And I don't know how he would fare against a fighter like Khamzat Chimaev, which a little bit ago I really was optimistic about how he would look in a fight like that. Right now I'm not so much, but I need to see more development from him. Still not 30 years old. Give him time to continue to develop. RDR is a nasty jiu-jitsu player, but I like the fact that Nickal was just in there with that type of fighter and Paul Craig, so he's going to be prepared for that type of situation. I'll tell you guys another aspect that people overlook is Bo Nickal has been very active in the grappling world. Okay, so he's not a fighter that's going to be in over his head if he's down on the mat and there's all types of wild BJJ exchanges going off. Okay, he's been in there with Gordon Ryan. Okay, they've had a little jiu-jitsu match. Okay, the point being is that if this fight goes to the mat, if he uses his wrestling, which he could always rely on, if the striking gets a little hectic for him, which I don't think RDR is really going to bring that threat to him, but even if it does, if he chooses to use that ace and get a takedown, it's not like he's just going to get a sub slapped on him. He knows how to defend submissions. He's actually going to be very high level there. That's something that people are going to see. If he would have went down to the mat, he probably could have avoided being subbed by Craig. I believe that, but I mean, Craig's dangerous, but I think that Bo Nickal is going to show to be very defensively sound down there, and he's going to have the striking advantage here. Okay, RDR, everyone makes fun of him. They poke fun at him. They say he's a low-level fighter, which I do not agree with. Okay, he has a different type of style. He's a little bit more of a one-dimensional type of style, but look what he's been doing. Comes over to the UFC, he's 2-0, defeating Kevin Holland and Gerald Meerschaert. Respectable opposition, and people still say he's a joke. I mean, just because he's not an extremely well-rounded fighter that has knockout power and all that, that doesn't mean he's a joke. All right, I respect what he was doing over there and won. He was a dual champion, and you kind of take a look at the Anatoly Malakin fight. Excuse me on the pronunciation there, but I am familiar with the fighter. I do believe, I don't like to throw those allegations out there, but you take a look at that dude's physique. He was a larger fighter that they fought up a weight class, and some of the tactics that Anatoly used against RDR, thinking of Gerald there, but against RDR, I do believe that Bo Nickal can also implement in this fight as things get going. And I definitely got to be on Bo Nickal here. I'm on Bo Nickal, and I'm going to say he gets a knockout. How about that? I'm going to say that RDR is going to push the pace in this fight, and he's not going to let the fight just coast similarly to that last one. I think that Bo Nickal is going to get put in a position where he's going to have to let those hands go and that developed striking go. And I'm going to say that he does, in fact, get a knockout. And that's what I'm hoping for. So he's a minus 275 here. When you take a look at some of the betting lines that have been next to Bo Nickal's name, I mean, that's a cheap line. He opened up as a minus 235. But I will tell you this, I have a lot of respect for RDR. Bo Nickal hasn't been looking as good as of recently. We need to see him step it up here. Okay, but you should expect to see that continued growth in his game. And the line's not horrible. I think that is an accurate line. How about that? I think that it's an accurate line where it is right now, right around a minus 275. Okay, if it gets up in the minus 300s, it may be a little bit too steep. Don't completely overlook RDR. He's dangerous, and he will press. Here we go, boys. We made it to the main event. Another bantamweight matchup. The number 4th ranked Cory Sandhagen takes on Deiveson Figueiredo, who's ranked 5th. Of course, Figueiredo, the former flyweight champ, who recently came up in weight, had some success, went on a 3-fight winning streak before taking a recent L against the surging and on fire Petr Yan. Petr Yan kind of in the driver's seat to be fighting for the belt eventually here after Merab and Sean O'Malley rematch. And we could take a quick look at what's going on here. That rematch is set to take place on June 7th. The loss that Sandhagen took, as both fighters come in off losses, was against Umar Nurmagomedov, who just fought for the belt. He came up short against Merab. You're talking the cream of the crop here. It's going to be very interesting to see what's next for Nurmagomedov and Petr Yan. Besides that, Song Yadong comes off that victory against Henry Cejudo. You could kind of put his name up in the mix. Rob Font on a 2-fight winning streak, even though I thought that he lost to G Matsumoto. I don't think that's too much to talk about. And then just 2 other fighters to keep an eye on are Marcus McGee and Vinicius Lokdog Oliveira. That's some new blood going on in the division. But the winner of this fight is going to have a lot of momentum behind them. I mean, let's cut to the chase here. Sandhagen's a big favorite, and I think that is kind of warranted. I have a lot of respect for what Figueiredo does, but he's now 37 years old. I don't think that he's going to be able to rely on the wrestling skills that he brings to the table, which we've seen him rely on as of recently, right? You take a look at the 3-fight winning streak he's had since coming up in weight, and you see that he actually, even though he's coming up in weight, he relied at times on the grappling strength that he has, the polished jiu-jitsu. I just don't see him doing that against Cory Sandhagen, right? When you think about that one major blemish that Sandhagen had against Aljamain Sterling, where he had his back taken and was subbed within a minute and a half, I just don't see Sandhagen being the same fighter that he was in that fight. I really chalked it up to just an off night in the office, or at the very least, he's a changed fighter, because his grappling has looked phenomenal. He's actually a fighter that goes out there and relies on his grappling and wrestling over the past couple of years. And if I were to lean towards one fighter's way, who prevails and who gets the better of those types of situations, I actually think that it's Sandhagen. He's the larger fighter. He's very long. His jiu-jitsu is nasty, and I could see him getting the better of that type of fight if Figueiredo wants to go there on the feet. Sandhagen's dynamic. He's long. Don't be surprised if he lands something crazy. We've seen him land the flying knee on Frankie Edgar. It's been a little bit since he's been doing that type of stuff, but if Figueiredo makes a mistake, Sandhagen can capitalize on him. Yes, Figueiredo also has plus power. When he lands, he can crack you too. So Sandhagen has to be on his P's and Q's there. We've never seen Sandhagen finished via strikes. I just think that Sandhagen is going to bounce back with the victory here. I really do. I mean, I like that initial success that we saw Figueiredo bring into this division, but I just think that Sandhagen's a whole different animal than a Rob Font or a Cody Garbrandt, excuse me, and even Marlon Chito Vera. I think that Sandhagen's a whole different type of fighter, and I think that you're going to see Sandhagen bounce back with the victory here. And I'm going to say that Sandhagen gets a unanimous decision. Now, this is a 5-round fight. If we want to take a quick look at some of those 5-rounders that Figueiredo was in back down in the flyweight division against Brandon Moreno, right? That trilogy that happened there, or excuse me, that quadrilogy, which was back to back to back to back. How can we forget that? Out of all of those fights, he did go to the 5th round in 2 of 4 of them. Okay. He was finished in the last bout against Brandon Moreno. He didn't get off the stool. He didn't go into the 4th round there. And then there was also the submission loss that happened in the 3rd round. So in 2 of those 5-round fights, he was finished in the 3rd round, but he has gone 25 minutes before. Maybe we see a late finish for Sandhagen. Maybe we see Figueiredo get a little bit overwhelmed, and maybe he kind of looks for a way out. Maybe we see him get frustrated. This is a 25-minute fight. Maybe we do see something like that. But my gut is telling me that we were more likely to see Sandhagen just kind of use his wrestling and control Figueiredo down there and kind of cruise to a dominant victory, which we've seen Sandhagen do quite often, even as of recently, right? You take a look at the Rob Font fight, just completely controlled and dominated him. The Marlon Chito Vera fight, he absolutely dominated him for 25 minutes. The Song Yadong fight, Song was stopped there before going into the 5th round due to that cut. But if it wasn't for the cut, that's probably another fight where he just dominates for 25 minutes. I'm going to say we see something similar to that. And also, he just went 25 minutes in his last fight with the L against Nurmagomedov, but major cage time for Sandhagen in his last 4 or 5 fights. So he's going to really just be comfortable. He's going to be at home in those later rounds. And I think that he's going to prove to be the better fighter here. He opened up as a -390. He's now a -460. This is a steep line, okay, against the former champ Figueiredo. Not a lot of respect coming on Figueiredo here. It's all the action is on Sandhagen from what we're seeing here, even as he opened up as a big favorite. And I think that it's kind of warranted. I like Sandhagen to win this fight. I feel pretty damn comfortable with it. I think the only way he loses is if he makes a glaring mistake and he gets finished. That's the only way. That's going to wrap this one up. I had fun doing this, man. I had a nice little coffee over here. I had a lot of energy. Hopefully things came off as smoothly as they seemed for me. I don't know. I enjoyed breaking down this card. I like this card, and I think there's some solid spots here. So you guys let me know what you think. I am definitely excited to see how Bo Nickal performs. Okay, guys, one of my favorite up-and-coming fighters in the fight game. We'll see how he looks, and hit the comment section up below, man. Let me know what you guys think. If you guys got some spots you're targeting, let me know what fight you're most looking forward to. Well, what bet you guys are targeting. If there's one that really stands out to you guys, we love that feedback in the comment section. I'll meet you guys there as always. And I know a couple of you haters will meet me there as well. Not a lot of you guys, especially when you take into consideration the ratio. The vast majority of all you guys are so pleasant to chat with, but there's some of those bad apples that always slide in, and I just love all the feedback there. So I'll leave you guys with some quick parting words, and we'll dive more into this in the future. But make sure you guys are staying positive with yourself. We're talking about those haters or whatnot. Make sure in the real world, not even just online, but in the real world, when you guys got people that are around your circle, whether it's family, friends of friends, acquaintances, make sure you keep those bad eggs further than at arm's reach. Keep them real far. Don't be shy to make a stance and keep you, your family, or whatever, just to keep yourself away from those bad eggs, because there's a lot of rotten apples in this world. I mean, there's a good amount of them, again, but not per ratio, right? There's a lot of great people in this world, but you guys know those bad eggs. Keep away from them, because they're only going to bring you down, and they're only going to put you in maybe not a good environment, if you will. So use your brain. Don't be involved in that type of negativity. You hit them with that stiff arm. I'm watching the draft over here. My Miami Dolphins, not a lot of picks to talk about. Did any of your guys' teams draft a player that you wanted? I wanted Tyler Warren at 13. He goes the next pick, but I do like KG, the defensive tackle the Dolphins drafted there. But any football fans, hit that comment section up below. You guys will definitely be catching more from me here throughout the fight week. Leave you guys with that signing out. Teller.
The teller.